I do want to encourage everyone to use that Q&A feature during our panel discussions. So please be sure to send in your questions for our panelists.
Good morning, Raleigh-Durham. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, moderators. Thank you, Keynote, all of you in the audience. We appreciate you being here today. My name is Abby Maloney, and I'm the president and CEO of Capital Analytics. Welcome to the first official launch conference of our Invest Raleigh-Durham report, an in-depth analysis of what makes the region tick, where are the opportunities, and what challenges lie ahead. I'd like to begin today by highlighting why we chose to extend our media platform to the Triangle region. Our initial interest stemmed from the fact that there is so much economic activity and investment happening in the region, but there isn't a one go-to resource for providing in-depth business analysis of this expansion. We aim to be that resource. I would also like to highlight that we started this project 8 months ago in the middle of the pandemic. I think that's emblematic of the spirit of the region and the country at this time. Rather than give in to prevalent uncertainty and shy away from developing new projects and businesses, we move forward. The fact that we're here virtually today is a reflection of this resilience of the individuals and businesses who have participated in the project despite its own uncertainties. It demonstrates that cooperation leads to success. The word success itself is a synonym for the Triangle region. It's 3 defining points of Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, and the entire area it encompasses. While the pandemic has had an impact on the region's economy, like everywhere else, the resilience built into the area has helped put it on a faster path to economic growth. In fact, earlier this year, 2 independent reports from Wake County Economic Development that compared 100 similar MSAs and prospects for job growth showed that the Greater Raleigh MSA was #1 ahead of Austin, Seattle, Atlanta, and San Francisco. There are multiple factors that have contributed to the region's thriving economy, including access to world-class talent, which can be attributed to the 3 renowned anchor universities of North Carolina State University, Duke University, and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The region's red-hot real estate market has shown no signs of slowing down and presents great opportunity for investors. Raleigh-Durham, meanwhile, ranks 7th in the country for its startup ecosystem and 6th nationally as a tech hub, having attracted the likes of Fortune 100 companies like Google and Apple. The overall business-friendly environment and overall quality of life both play a significant role in the expansion of the Triangle's economy. Of course, challenges remain. We aren't out of the woods yet with the pandemic as new variants emerge and cases continually to rise nationally. Outside of the pandemic, affordable and workforce housing is an issue that will only gain prominence as real estate prices continue to climb higher. But overall, the region is poised to continue strong post-pandemic economy. There's no doubt the Triangle is moving forward. At Capital Analytics, we're also excited to move forward, building on a very successful year given everything that has transpired. Like so many other businesses, we saw the pandemic as an opportunity to change things up. Business intelligence is now more vital than ever to change in print, digital, or virtual conferences like these. First, We expanded our very talented team at Capital Analytics to cover new markets of coverage in this post-pandemic world. Those new markets include San Antonio, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Nashville, Jacksonville, Florida, Pittsburgh, and of course, Raleigh-Durham. Next, our Invest Insights video platform has exploded. Season 4 has just been released, and you can see Dennis Edwards, the president and CEO of the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau, as one of our first videos released from Raleigh. We're finding that our partners, like yourselves, want to participate and want a community connection and want to get the message out that the world marches on. We expanded that video platform to a podcast so our readers and viewers can listen to the informative content on the go. And we could not be more pleased with the adaptation to virtual events. Transforming our live conferences into the digital world last year was quite nerve-wracking, but we've discovered we have a new skill set here at Capital Analytics. After 10 successful virtual events over the past year, we are here today with well over 500 registered RSVPs in a first year launch event, which is quite remarkable indeed. Our global subscribers and readers have never been more engaged. If people are to invest in uncertain times, they want to be better informed, and they're coming to us to do just that. So as you can see, the key for us, with as so many of you joining us here today, has been the ability to transform. Transformation, in fact, is our adopted theme for this year, and it will be a central element to today's discussion as we look at the future of financing, education, and real estate, and what transformations have been taking place. In all of our discussions with hundreds of businesses and political leaders, a common thread is how far we've come in such a short amount of time, how advances that were expected to take years have taken months. As a community, there is little doubt that we've transformed for the better, emerging stronger than ever. I'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsors for today's event. Our gold sponsors, APG Capital, Arco Design and Build, the Jim Allen Group at Coldwell Banker, our bronze sponsor, Carolina Meadows, our honored sponsors, Valentine, Capital Associates Management, Edward Jones, Fifth Third Bank, Invisible, K&L Gates, KW Commercial North Raleigh, LS3P Architects, and the Architect Triangle Park. Thank you. It is with your support that we can continue to bring high-level speakers and content to the Raleigh-Durham area. I would also like to recognize the team who worked tirelessly on this first edition. Robin Mangrum and Chris Chapman, you and your team did an excellent job. Well done. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our opening keynote, one of the pillar business leaders in Raleigh-Durham, Adrian Cole, the CEO of Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce. Adrian, please turn on your video and your audio. It's wonderful to have you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Abby, for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, I'll hand it over to you.
Fantastic. So thanks again, Abby, for having me at the Invest Raleigh-Durham 2021 launch conference. I am thrilled to be here. I'd like to start by sharing a bit about the Greater Raleigh Chamber. We are the Triangle's largest business member organization, representing 2/3 of the private sector employment in Wake County. We work to build a thriving regional economy, enhance the community's quality of life, and strengthen and support member businesses and the broader business community. The Raleigh Chamber serves as a connector for our business community. We sit at the crossroads of several critical initiatives, including economic development. Wake County Economic Development is a program of the Raleigh Chamber. Public policy, we are a nonpartisan organization that works to support sound business policy and work with whomever is elected to move those initiatives forward. Transportation and transit, we are also home of the Regional Transportation Alliance. Talent and workforce development, we run a talent initiative called Work in the Triangle. Diversity, equity, and inclusivity, we are the home of the Triangle DEI Alliance. Entrepreneurship and innovation, we are in a wonderful partnership with Innovate Raleigh. And of course, supporting our member businesses and industries and much, much more. We are honored to have a voice in each of these conversations, and we are grateful for the collaboration and partnership of this community and its leaders. We exist to welcome these challenges and opportunities with tenacity, agility, and an unsinkable entrepreneurial spirit so that the greater Raleigh-Durham metro region can continue to thrive. I thought I'd start by sharing some recent focus and areas of activity that we've seen over the last 18 months. Economic development activity did not slow down during the pandemic. We maintained an active project load of between about 40 and 50 active projects over the last 18 months. We consider a project active if we've been actively engaged with the client over the last 60 to 90 days. We have a much longer list of projects that sometimes go quiet, sometimes get paused, sometimes get put on hold, or sometimes just taking their time. Apple was certainly in that category with a 3-year project window. We're currently working 43 active projects with the potential to create 9,254 jobs and $2.5 billion in investment. They span multiple industry clusters. We're seeing an uptick in headquarters projects, shared services, advanced manufacturing. Life sciences has had an incredible year and continues to be very strong. Software, information technology, clean tech, and others. We recognize that the pandemic has had an uneven effect on local companies across various sectors. Our approach to assisting the business community was immediate, and we worked to meet companies where they were. We shifted to a virtual setting, hosting over 120 virtual events, refocused our efforts on response and eventually recovery, as well as supporting those companies that found themselves in a rapid growth mode. Over the past year, we assisted over 350 small and women and minority-owned businesses through a series of programs and support efforts, and highlighted over 1,300 jobs through our virtual career fair, Triangle Tuesdays, to support the hiring and talent needs of over 130 existing companies. Our community's strong market fundamentals kept the region at the top of the list for many companies, even as the pandemic threatened to change the business landscape. Our commitment to smart growth and jobs was a core focus as we navigated through the pandemic, with a focus on talent and workforce development, viable sites for projects, as well as important topics like housing affordability, diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and sustainability, which are increasingly important to companies evaluating our market. So far this fiscal year, we have announced 5,815 new jobs and $3.7 billion in CapEx investment in Wake County alone. This includes projects like Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnology's $2 billion investment to create the largest monoclonal antibodies facility in North America, Amgen's $500 million biomanufacturing investment, and Apple's new East Coast engineering hub that will create 3,000 new jobs in RTP. Our partners in Durham have announced additional exciting projects like Google's 1,000-person expansion. At the core of what we do is collaboration. Collaboration is that thing that makes the region so special, and it's the key to our success. Working closely together with leaders from the business community is what enables us to stay ahead of the needs of our region. It is common practice for us to collaborate across counties and municipalities to put our best foot forward and tackle our most pressing challenges, whether that is teaming up on an economic development pursuit or addressing regional transit and commuter rail. We always think we are stronger together. We have long been an ascending market, but that ascension is accelerating. We have to work together and plan for our future, taking a heads-up approach to transportation and transit, infrastructure, education and workforce development, and career pipeline opportunities, housing affordability, parks and green space, quality of place initiatives, arts and entertainment, and sustainability will be key to our long-term success. Each year, we commission a study comparing our metro to 100 of the largest metros in the US across 260 different indicators, comprising 5 indexes. The analysis revealed that the Raleigh-Durham metro was the most competitive metro in the nation, outperforming other larger communities. In addition, we have partnered with the Research Triangle Regional Partnership on an aggressive marketing campaign for the region, targeting the Northeast and West Coast. And we'll be relaunching our talent and recruitment retention initiative work in the Triangle. The Triangle region is well positioned to compete and continues to be a prime destination for talent and new investment. We are pleased by recent rankings recognizing our community as a top place to live, a global science hub, a millennial magnet, and top tech hub, among other accolades. Being included on lists like these energize us to keep working on our community and ensuring its success for years to come. We are fortunate to work with so many incredible partners, many of whom are featured in the Invest Raleigh-Durham 2021 publication. It was great to see so many friends. Without our partners at area community colleges, workforce boards, colleges and universities, private sector leaders across multiple industry sectors, elected and public sector leaders, and the collaboration across jurisdictions that we enjoy, we would not be as successful as we have been and will continue to be. Events like these and publications like Invest provide opportunities for individuals, companies, and organizations who care about our community's future to come together, united by a shared vision of future success, as well as another voice, another opportunity to share why this region is the best bet for investment. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes with you today. Thank you for your partnership and for all you do to make the Triangle region the best region in the country.
Thank you, Adrienne. Appreciate you being with us today and appreciate your remarks. So thank you very much. Good morning, everyone else. I would also like to add my appreciation for you all being here today and for the business community, which allowed us to produce this report and participated with us on this inaugural edition. While I wish we were gathered together today, it is my pleasure to be here with you virtually. For those who do not know me, I'm Jack Miller, and I'm the Regional Director at Capital Analytics overseeing the South region. I would also like to extend my congratulations to our team for their tireless work in putting together this year's report. Most of you should have received your copies already. If you haven't, feel free to reach out to us and we can send some copies along to you. I wanted to take also a moment just to update you on our work. Since we launched our first report in Miami many years ago, we have only continued to grow and provide in-depth intelligence for many major markets in the country. Our regional presence has continued to grow. We will soon publish our 4th edition of Focus Atlanta and our 1st edition of Invest Nashville. Research will also begin soon for our 3rd edition of Invest Charlotte. If you know anyone in these cities or markets who would like to participate in these reports, please feel free to reach out to us. Also, to sign up for our newsletters for Raleigh-Durham or for any of our other markets, you can email contact@capitalaa.com or visit our website, capitalanalyticsassociates.com. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our first panel, Banking on the Future. Financial leaders explore what's next for their sector. Moderating this panel today is Rob Ragsdale, partner and head of the Raleigh office at Ballantine. Rob, sorry, if you could please turn on your camera and unmute yourself. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the other panelists and lead the discussion.
Good morning and thanks everyone. My name is Rob Ragsdale and I'm a partner with Ballantine, where I manage our North Carolina office based here in Raleigh. And joining me are 3 terrific participants today in our panel on financial services, in many ways the backbone of so many industries based here in the Triangle. In order, Lee Fight, Regional President, Mid-Atlantic, Fifth Third Bank. In addition to that, we have Lee Hogwood, Attorney, Managing Partner, K&L Gates, and Brad McCrae, General Partner and Regional Leader out of Raleigh for Edward Jones. Thank you all for joining today. I appreciate your time and spending some with this group. It's a privilege and I look forward to speaking with everyone. Briefly, what we want to talk about today is just a couple of touch points on really where we've been looking back, understanding the current landscape as well as the ever cloudy crystal ball as to what is on the horizon for us here. But I'd love to maybe just throw a question to each of you to answer out of the gate to talk about really kind of what's transpired over the last couple of months in regards to COVID. With the pandemic and everything that's transpired here locally, what would you all identify as a couple of the key takeaways from handling the issues of the last 18 months? And also, how are these lessons learned currently benefiting your respective organizations? Lee, I'll start with you and Brad, and then actually that was a trick question. There's 2 Lees. Why don't we do, Brad, Lee. How about that way? We can get Lees after that.
Sounds great. Rob, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. So really, this pandemic has taught us a lot of things. We just recently gathered solid insights from our research partners at AgeWave and also the Harris Poll. And so just kind of some numbers fresh off the press here is that what we've learned during COVID is that 69 million Americans, or almost a third of Americans, think that they will have to retire later because of the pandemic. So that's a big number. And on top of that, most Americans, almost 70%, have viewed the pandemic as almost like a financial a wake-up call, if you will. saying it's caused them to and prompted them to think more about their long-term finances. And one other data point that we've really been able to reflect on over the past few months as an organization is that 3 out of 4 Americans, or 76%, credit the pandemic with causing them to refocus on what's most important in their lives. And I'm sure everyone that's viewing this broadcast and some of our other panelists can attest to that as well. So we look at this as not just a particular headwind, but something that is prompting people to refocus on what's most important to their family, starting with their values, and then of course, us helping them tie their values to their goals.
Super. Lee Hogwood, over to you. And I'll use last names for this panel.
Sure. It's amazing that we have 2 Lees in the group, but I've sort of reacted to your question in terms of sort of what happened internally over the last 18 months. And I think we, as a law firm, have been benefited from the fact that much of what we do as a multi-office organization has, in many senses, always been virtual and always been remote as we work in teams across many offices. But locally, a really good kind of glue that bound us together before we got into this, a strong sense of team and teamwork, and trying to continue to keep that in place while also responding to what is the new reality of people expecting and wanting to work in many different environments in the future, and continue to service clients who may need us to be present, and they may need us to be online 24/7. So it's an ongoing learning experience, but I would say the glue of relationships and maintaining those is a key part of being successful, both over the last 18 months and into the future.
So, to echo my fellow panelists' thoughts, we've learned a lot, but if anything, I think the last year and a half has accelerated some trends that were already in place prior to the pandemic. Brad referenced the fact that folks are having to push out retirement. Yes, that's true. We've seen that. Nearly 2/3 of Americans say that they live paycheck to paycheck. And what you saw with the pandemic is that you saw a tale of 2 cities. Folks that were already on the edge and on the fringe, it's been tougher. And, when you look at a market like the Triangle, where housing has just been red hot and there's so many people moving in, I think the population growth over the last 10 years is 23%. When you see something like that, it's going to make it a more difficult time for folks that are on the margins. The flip side of that is that we have a lot of corporate and commercial relationships that they've been busy. There are opportunities to grow. There are companies that need access to capital just to continue to maintain what they have in place. And so for us, frankly, it's been one of the busiest times in my nearly 30-year career. We started, 15 months ago with having employees go remote. And for us, that meant, nearly half of our workforce was working remote for 6 months. Half were continuing to come in and to be available for our customers. And so we had to utilize technology differently. We had to make sure that we were communicating very, very frequently to make sure that customers and communities were able to have the access, the advice that they needed. And frankly, I think we've done a good job with that. What does that mean for us, and what have we learned as we go forward? We're going to continue to invest very heavily in technology that allows us to work in a variety of ways and reach our customers 24 hours a day. It means that we'll continue to emphasize flexibility in terms of how we work, where we work, and how we show up. The last thing that I would say, and this is unique to the triangle for us, is that we announced in 2019 a very significant investment into the market. And so we have been building branches throughout the triangle and adding to training centers and adding and recruiting for new jobs throughout the pandemic. And that may not have been the perfect time to embark on such an ambitious endeavor. But what we have seen is that we've been welcomed into the communities. And I think that a lot of folks have looked at partners that have been available and accessible over the last year and recognized that that's a commitment that's pretty important in Raleigh and Durham and throughout the triangle.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. And I'll throw it over for another question, maybe pivoting a little bit, not from the last several months that were, but really to where we are right now and understanding the current landscape. And with regards to Lee, the reference that you just provided with the tremendous growth that we've seen here demographically and economically, with that growth can come challenges. And, with all the growth currently transpiring in the triangle, amidst lingering issues stemming from the pandemic, what do you all feel the main challenges and primary risks are of that growth to the banking and financial industry at this time?
I'll take a stab at that. There are a couple of challenges in a high growth market. And what we see, and frankly, I think we see this in most industries right now, as I'm out meeting with customers, number one for all of them is talent. They're looking for workers and having trouble with that. That's true. It's true in our business too. We have some of the best and brightest minds that I think are available in our industry. But when you're growing in a market, you need more people. You look at the number of people moving into the triangle, they need advice, they need help and trying to prepare a roadmap for their families and for their businesses. And so we are looking for people. We're hiring every day. And the other is just around technology. There are solutions that are in place that customers have embraced in the last year because it's made it easier for them to get access to information and to data to run their lives. And what's interesting is those were investments that we were making 5 and 6 years ago. And so today we are trying to anticipate what the world's going to look like 5 years from now. And we're making investments for that. That's always a challenge to hope that you're getting that right and to learn in real time. But to take information and to provide it to our customers as quickly and efficiently as possible so they can make better decisions, that's what we're gearing up for.
I'll jump in and just say, and while I'm the office managing partner here in Raleigh, I'm also a bankruptcy lawyer, and so high growth also involves a fair amount of risk taking. And over the last 18 months, we've seen obviously an amazing level of investment by the government in maintaining the status quo, keeping the economy moving forward. Those investments are going to be pulled back. At the same time, I think Lee would probably agree with me. Lenders like Fifth Third and their many competitors have been cautious about exercising remedies in the context of a global pandemic and the economic crisis that could have occurred if they had acted differently. That level of caution probably made a lot of sense, but they also probably have some borrowers who are not going to ultimately be successful. So I think there may be a challenge in terms of seeing those things sort of work themselves out over the coming year or so. That's an issue that we're focused on, of course.
I'll also add is when we think back to some of the challenges and really obstacles that we're seeing in our industry is really just the focus, a renewed effort to be more holistic in the advice that we're providing, understanding that families are wanting to go beyond retirement planning and really go a lot deeper in conversations. And we've been focusing on really 4 pillars throughout this pandemic from a local level and of course, throughout the country. But the 4 pillars are family, purpose, health, and finances. And what we've learned is that those pillars are really universal and are important to many Americans, and especially in the Triangle as well. So this is what they wish, our clients are wishing, and really the community at large is hoping that our financial industry and even the advice that they're being given or provided, the advisors are able to go deeper and are able to facilitate those discussions. And one other thing that we really have been mindful of locally and throughout the country is being inclusive. If we even look at the reality of for women, and we think about inequity and pay and the sacrifices that some women have to make when it comes to being family caregivers. And an interesting stat is women's account balances or retirement balances on average are 2/3 or 67% of men's retirement balances. So that's according to how America saves from Vanguard. So we're mindful of that. And it also means that we need to skill up those advisors that we're training, that we're onboarding, and those even that are veterans and highly successful. We all are looking to continue to learn and grow. And then if we add in the additional racial earnings gap and women of color, it's an even greater disadvantage. So we're as advisors, as leaders, we want to continue to be mindful of that, and we see that as an opportunity, but also as a unique challenge as well.
Appreciate that, Brad. And those 4 pillars you referenced definitely provide a very strong foundation to navigate whatever uncertainties come down the road. So that's sage advice. Lee Hogwood, I'd like to pivot to you for a second in your role as an attorney, which you referenced a second ago. In your work, as you referenced, obviously entailing a lot of representation of creditors in bankruptcy and insolvency proceedings, what are some of the most common missteps which you saw clients make over this period of unusual volatility? And how have you since helped them strategize how to make the best out of this new normal and the cards that they've been dealt kind of on the other side of this?
Yeah, so most of our work is on the side of lenders, and I would say I'm not sure I can identify any common missteps, but I would say what I mentioned earlier, lenders exercising a level of caution and delay in terms of exercising remedies was probably on balance a really good decision, both for them as institutions, for their borrowers, for the economy overall. Because I think, if we look back 18 months, we were envisioning some really, really dire circumstances and scenarios in terms of the economy, and most of those have not played out. I would also say, I mean, we do some borrower side work, and we've had a couple of clients pivot in ways that just demonstrates the brilliance and resilience of entrepreneurs moving from overseas mattress production to the development of products that are perfect for families and children, hold up in their homes over extended periods of time. And it's really been amazing to watch clients come up with great ideas to solve problems, and then to allow us to basically document their solutions. That's been a really fun thing to observe over the last couple of years.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll pivot a little bit. You talked about the need for entrepreneurs to be nimble in navigating this environment. A question, Brad and Lee Fight, for you, obviously, with regards to your respective companies, bricks and mortar locations are very pivotal. And Lee Fight, this will be to you in particular. While many banks have used the pandemic to further online and technology platforms and actually contract their physical locations, you guys have really made a concerted effort to double down on your efforts to expand your physical presence with multiple new branches opening in this area. Talk a little bit about, if you will, what you think are the continued areas of importance for brick and mortar locations to the future of banking and financial services versus online offerings.
Sure. Look, we have been making significant investment in technology, and we'll continue to do that. Half of all interactions that occur with the customer now are going to be through some form of technology. And, when you think about mobile banking and how people access accounts using smart devices, you're close to 3/4 of all transactions going through a mobile device. So clearly technology is very important and will continue to be a big part of what companies invest in. That said, when it comes to a really important decision, a personal decision, people do like to make decisions face to face. They want relationships. And if the pandemic reinforced anything for us from the past, it's that relationships matter. We were getting in the early months when folks were at home, we were getting phone calls around the clock. I mean, I was getting phone calls at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. You have customers that were really concerned. They didn't know where to go next. And so relationships mattered. And if they don't know you or we don't know them, it's harder to connect in that way. So we know loud and clear that that matters and that people want to have those relationships. But even a step further, when you look at it neighborhood by neighborhood, which is how we try to look at it, you see the differences where you have a presence and where you do not have a physical presence in terms of how a neighborhood has access to capital, to ideas, to access to food, access to transportation. It carries through industries, and we think it's important to be a part of a community at that granular level. And so we are going to make those investments. We have made them in the Triangle. We'll continue to do that, and we're doing that in markets throughout the country where we think we need to have a little deeper coverage. And I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future for us.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Lee. Brad, I'll go over to you now. And you talked about some of the pillars that you're advising on from a maybe fundamentals, if I can use your vernacular perspective. Talk about two things, if I could. One, what you're advising clients who've gone through this tumultuous storm to focus on from an investment perspective. The capital markets obviously change, second to second, but from a thematic or strategic perspective, however you would categorize it, what are some of the key areas of advice that you're dispensing your clients in the investment management realm? And in addition to that, we actually just had a question pop up on the chat box as to thoughts generally on cryptocurrency. So if you'd be willing to take that one as a follow-up as well, and also with regards to Lee Fight and Lee Hogwood, if you guys have any follow-up thoughts on crypto as well, look forward to your insights.
Rob. Yeah, so when we think about the fundamentals have not changed for us. I think if anything, it has amplified some of the things that we need to stick to as far as a foundation with financial plans. But there's at least three things that really stand out. The first is the pandemic has really taught us to focus on the things you can control. Of course, you have your uncontrollable variables in life, and then you have your controllable variables. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there. And it's a lot easier to make decisions with your head or really with your stomach as opposed to your head. And so what our goal is really as advisors and as leaders in our community is to help people make sound decisions based off of informed information and being informed. So being a good steward of their own money, in short there. So once again, focusing on what they can control. And that may be whether it be their income, how much they're spending, You have some control over your earnings projection. You have some control over how long you work. But there's other areas that you do not have control over, like inflation or the market, the capital markets. But it still helps to be aware and to be astute in those areas, but to not feel overwhelmed by it. So once again, we are really have focused a lot and helped our advisors in the triangle really focus on helping clients focus on the controllable variables. The second thing that I think is really important, we feel is really important, is measuring risk tolerance. I mean, as we all know, when we go to the doctor, if we go to the doctor, typically one of the first things that they do is they check your pulse, right? And it's each time. So we're being a lot more deliberate and intentional because we're at times, especially in an inflated market, the lure of return is high. And some people feel like trees will grow to the sky, and so sometimes it's really good to help people level set and sometimes I won't say reset their expectations, but use the facts, use history to help guide them towards the future. So we're really spending a lot more time helping our clients, the thousands, tens of thousands of families in the triangle, balance between risk and return and make sure that they're not unintentionally taking on too much risk. And then in terms of cryptocurrency, where we stand now is we don't necessarily recommend cryptocurrency. However, I'll pivot or at least pass maybe the mic to Lee or one of the Lees, the CFA, have any further guidance on cryptocurrency.
I'll just tell you that as an institution, we are spending a lot of time looking at cryptocurrencies, the risks, the risk to investors, the legal risks. We think it's important for you to know who you're doing business with. And in some cases, I'm not sure that infrastructure is as sound as we might prefer. The immediate concern that I have more on a personal level with cryptocurrencies, while I think there's probably a place for it, and you certainly see a lot of excitement for it, it does appear to be highly speculative right now. And, probably similar to what Brad shared, when we're giving advice, we're going to look to minimize risk where possible for our customers. And we're going to look to make sure that we're making sound long-term investment decisions and advice and guidance and that sort of thing. And the jury's out in terms of where crypto is gonna fit in a big way there. So we're taking a more conservative approach at this point, and I think that's probably the prudent way to be at this time.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly. I'm certainly not a crypto expert. We have experts in blockchain and crypto in our firm, but what I think there's an interesting tension that maybe Lee Fight was identifying. The banks are facing significant competition from unregulated financial actors in the crypto space, while at the same time recognizing that there is probably lots of money to be made in that unregulated space, and therefore many banks are providing financial resources to blockchain and crypto startups. And so it's an interesting time. I think the banks would like to see those institutions more heavily regulated so that the competition is on a more level playing field. But at the same time, there are opportunities in an unregulated environment.
And it's interesting you bring up crypto, which was one of the items addressed in this week's release of the House Ways and Means Committee's proposal on pending tax changes. And change, as we all know, is the constant. But it feels like today there's even more change than ever on so many fronts. And whether it's the estate, income tax, capital gains tax, cryptocurrency elements, the dynamic nature of the capital markets, or the socioeconomic component of COVID, it's about as cloudy a crystal ball as there's been. And I'd love to maybe just wrap with regards to each of you getting some concluding thoughts as to, really how you're advising your clients at present as to what to plan for on the horizon, given the kind of, nature of where we are at the moment.
Our approach and our advice has been the same, steady as she goes. If you're investing at a personal level, the same things that we've always talked about are applicable. You need to be well diversified. You need to make sure that you have your rainy day fund. You have your safety net in place. And so those fundamentals don't change. From a corporate perspective, I'll tell you that many businesses, Lee alluded to this early on. We forecasted that this could be a really tough time, and we had to, based on experiences from the past. But as it turned out, it wasn't as bad from a failure of businesses. It wasn't as bad from that perspective as one might have expected. And so what we have seen is that those companies that were well positioned and had the capital structure in place to allow them to make acquisitions, to invest wisely, they're doing that. They're doing that now. And I think that will continue. As we work through some of the supply chain challenges, there are going to be some real opportunities for well-managed, well-capitalized businesses. And those are the ones that I think right now are very active in terms of preparing for as we get into 2022.
And I'll echo part of what Lee mentioned there is one thing that stands out to me is getting some hay in the barn. So when things are going well, making sure you're saving, and we've seen the numbers increase. I think the average family in the U.S., they've been able to increase their savings balance over the past year and a half or so. But that's something that will really help protect families. So really kind of our focus over the coming months and years, even locally, is to help clients balance their short-term and long-term goals and meeting them where they are. So balancing those needs and goals, and also understanding that each generation kind of has their own thing that's most important to them, or that could be more universal. For example, we're more mindful in our approach with millennials, that millennials on average have a higher student debt balance. So maybe how we're approaching and talking through their goals may be a lot different, or a little bit different than some of our baby boomers who are approaching retirement or already in retirement. So what really stands out to us is meeting people where they are and being able to pivot and stay nimble in those conversations, regardless of who you are communicating with.
Thanks, Brad. Lee, any last concluding comments?
Just real quickly, because I know we're close to being out of time. I think, Rob, as you know, we lawyers are on real dangerous territory when we start giving economic advice as to reacting to client-specific legal problems. And so, one, I try to stay out of that. And then two, I think some of the things that have already been said, plan for the worst, and then work toward the best, and try to develop a legal strategy that protects you, particularly from the downside, is a big picture piece of advice that probably works for all time.
That is sage, timeless counsel. So definitely concur with that. And with that, folks, as Lee referenced, we are at this point at the conclusion of our panel. So I want to do a final word of thanks to each of our participants, Brad McCrae of Edward Jones, Lee Fight of Fifth Third, and Lee Hogwood of Keynote Gates. Thank you guys all. I know you're incredibly busy. Appreciate your participation, taking a moment today. So sincere thanks on behalf of everyone, and we'll turn the microphone back over.
And if everyone can just hold for 1 second, we're just taking a quick picture. Smile. Perfect.
Thank you, Rob, Brad, both Lees for being with us today. Thanks for that great discussion on finance in the Triangle region. We appreciate your time. As a reminder as well, all of our registered attendees today will receive complimentary access to read Invest Raleigh-Durham 2021 report digitally as well. So look out for an email that will be sent early next week. Also, we are currently live streaming on our YouTube page where this event will sit for anyone who wants to revisit these discussions today. It's now my pleasure to introduce our second panel for today's event, Innovation Overload, exploring how new ideas and innovation are influencing education and the Triangle's economy. Moderating this panel today is Ray Trapp, Vice President of Strategic Development at the Research Triangle Park. Ray, if you want to turn on your camera and unmute yourself. And if the other panelists want to do the same, I'm going to hand it over to you, Ray. Good to see you, and let you introduce the panelists and take away the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us as we talk about innovation overload, exploring how new ideas and innovation are influencing education and the Triangle's economy. I am joined by an esteemed group of panelists this afternoon and would like to get into this. First up, Chuck Morrison, CEO for Invisible, Sean Sowers, Higher Education Practice Leader and Senior Associate, LS3P. And last but certainly not least, Thomas A. Stiff III, President, North Carolina Community College System. Let's go ahead and get right into this. To start off, can you give a quick definition of what innovation means to you and your organization? And finally, how this definition has changed for you and your organization after handling the challenges of the last year and a half. Let's start with Chuck, then Sean, and then we'll get to President Stiff. So Chuck, over to you.
All right, appreciate it. Glad to be here. I would say for us at Invisible, prior to the pandemic, we had recognized the need in education to make classroom air safer, to make surfaces safer, to disinfect better, given high absentee rates in school districts around the country, especially economically challenged school districts where students are one-to-one with devices taking them home. Obviously, if you take something home, you're bringing something back in. It could be a virus, it could be bacteria, it could be any number of things. And so early on, back in late 2018, we began looking into this and seeing how we could improve the statistics for attendance for not only students, but also for faculty and staff in education. Then the pandemic hit, and so we kind of had to step on the gas a little bit harder in terms of some product development and finalize some things probably sooner than we would have liked to, but we have really good engineers and a really good team, and we're able to do that and start to educate folks on, what is out there in terms of air quality in a classroom, the types of bacteria and germs that are on surfaces, and just make sure they make an informed decision on what solutions they choose to improve those aspects in their classrooms, buildings, what have you. But our main focus is education.
Great. And for LS3P, as architects and designers and planners, our mission is to engage with our clients and our communities to design meaningful places that have proven results that can transform. And so over the past 18 months, really Transform has focused for us on resiliency across all facets of our practice. And, I think innovation can mean so many different things, but I think based on the recent events, it really shows how innovation stems from a sense of adaptability, as well as an awareness of increased inclusivity and really looking at ways that we can best serve our whole diverse communities that we find here in the Triangle.
Yes, Ray, thank you. And I do have to say, I appreciate the opportunity to talk today and also welcome you, Ray, to the North Carolina Community College State Board. As our newest member, we certainly value your input and insight. When you speak to innovation, you're really defining the North Carolina Community College System. We are the first choice for higher education in the state, whether you're a newly minted high school student or a displaced worker or someone that's mid-career that wants to change careers. So we were in the midst of innovation prior to COVID, as others have mentioned, because the key for us is to ensure that we're aligned not only with our students, but with the business and the industry, because we are the key supplier for that workforce, whether it's biotechnology, healthcare, or IT. So as we moved through this past year, 18 months, we quickly pivoted while we remained open throughout, still remain open for in-classroom instruction. We had, of our 58 colleges, the ability to go virtual. We also utilized funding to push broadband out to our rural community colleges. We were able to provide that to about 20 of our rural community colleges to ensure that instruction was available and also sort of the broader use in that community. You had individuals in the community able to have connectivity. So when we look at innovation, we realize that's a continuing process for entities in higher education, because we're meeting two needs: to meet the needs of the student, and as I said, the needs of business and industry. And that's what we've done successfully throughout the pandemic, and will continue to do so as we return for the fall. Certainly more on campus, in classroom instruction, but we are prepared for a virtual environment if necessary as well.
Perfect. Thank you to all the panelists. Great answers to a great question to kick us off. President Stith, I want to stay here with you as we talk about the North Carolina Community College system. Thank you for welcoming me to the board. It is an absolute pleasure. As a community college graduate, I understand that gap and how community college plays an essential role in not only business, but also in the education of citizens throughout the state of North Carolina. So let's talk about the growing gap between the jobs that require a college degree or a post-high school certificate and the number of people available to fill those jobs who don't necessarily have those credentials. Many fear that this gap will continue to grow due to the challenges of the last year and a half with COVID. How has the North Carolina Community College system innovated over the last year to tackle this challenge? And what needs to change within the traditional higher education model to further address the business community's changing needs?
Certainly, and as we say, we have to continue to focus on innovation. We have developed flexible entry and exit points to align with our citizens and our students as they look at their education needs. And that really is regardless of the industry. We realize the changing economy requires us to shift from people may have to shift from one occupation to the other. So it's important to have pathways provided for them. That rapid shift requires training that can take place in many cases in a short-term amount of time. So that individual is quickly retrained in some of our short-term workforce training programs and can immediately re-enter the workforce because they may not have time for a 2-year associate's degree to be retrained. They need that short-term training, re-enter the workforce with a new career. We've also focused recently on providing in two areas. One, teacher preparation. We just signed a historic agreement with our 4-year public university system. Those individuals interested in teaching our students and our children across the state. So they're able to come to a community college and pursue an associate's in arts or science and have a seamless pathway to a 4-year institution, entering that as a junior and completing that education. So it's a key way to ensure that we're participating in that pipeline that is needed to have strong teachers within our school systems. And so we have that partnership just recently signed with the university system. The other area is the North Carolina workforce credentials. That's, again, focusing on short-term training, preparing individuals so they have those industry credentials, whether it's hospitality or tourism, or advanced manufacturing, or even the construction trades. They're able to utilize the educational facilities at the community college system and then quickly re-enter the workforce. That is, specifically targeted to help support our attainment goal. And I really look at it, we're supporting in 3 areas. One, as I mentioned, the attainment goal. We have to have at least 2 million North Carolinians with a high quality credential, a post-secondary degree. Our goal is by 2030, elevating the access and addressing equity to ensure that we are not only to have the open doors of the North Carolina Community College, therefore access, but also affordability to ensure that we have broad participation by all citizens throughout North Carolina. And then again, those provide the framework for providing a robust talent pipeline to ensure, first and foremost, as I said, we're meeting the needs of our students and industry, because as the job engine of the state, preparing that workforce for the state, we have to be clearly aligned with the needs of business and industry now more than ever. If you look at the significant amount of business expansion and location in North Carolina, we have to be sure that we're very much aligned with industry.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you, President Stitt. Ms. Sowers, let's talk about education and innovation, and also the long-term expectation of higher education looking more and more like it'll continue to exist both in person and remote. How have you innovated your approach and design methods as it pertains to developing new educational facilities? And a part two to this, how these new designs positively benefit and help shape the delivery of higher education in the future?
I love this question, and I'm so excited to share thoughts on that today. So I think something that stands out to me is that over the past 18 months, the 2 academic years and now going into our 3rd, an entire generation of learners have expanded their vocabulary to include the words synchronous and asynchronous learning. And I think we've shown and demonstrated that in-person, online, hybrid modalities, all of those add value to our educational system. And certainly we've proven that there are some things that work really well, and then there are some other things that definitely need to continue evolving and need that improvement. So I think these factors are definitely shifting our conversations about what we are doing in terms of designing formal and informal learning spaces, as well as the spaces that are really focused on both student and faculty success. So first off, I have to give all kinds of credit to our students and educators for making that heroic shift in 2020 in the spring, and really proving that academia can be nimble and be adaptable and make shifts and adjustments while still continuing on the missions of each of the school systems and the institutions. And without question, all of our students, or I shouldn't say all, a vast majority of our students are clamoring to be back on campus and, experience what normal activities are going to be as we define our campuses. And a lot of that revolves around our social interactions with their peers and with access to their faculty advisors as well. However, I think that the online and hybrid course options have really helped to create new pathways and new options for our higher ed students across the region. And, it's benefiting a wide variety of people, right? From those with limited financial or transportation access, those with mental and physical health concerns that are prohibitive of coming to campus on a regular basis, folks that are working full-time and want to increase their skill sets, or maybe they're managing caregiver schedules. So there's, I think, a wide variety when we talk about access, equity and access to higher education. And I can share personally for me, going through the pandemic experience and really talking with our clients about the availability of online course offerings inspired me to take a huge leap. And I'm actually enrolled as a continuing education student through Wake Tech right now. And it's been a really tremendous experience for me, because not only am I learning a second language, which is really daunting and intimidating for a non-traditional student, but I'm also experiencing the firsthand benefits of what synchronous online education can offer. So I think as we continue working with our higher ed institutions, as we're designing, the next generation post-COVID facilities, we're really looking deeper at, what those campus spaces are all about for learning environments, and how can we create them to be more flexible and adaptable. I think that's something that we learned out of the physical distancing of COVID, and, some of the more fixed spaces were a bit more challenging to bring students back onto campus within those. Is this really the death of the lecture hall? I don't think so. I think there's always going to be a need for assembly and gathering of large groups on campuses. But I think we're also going to see a shift from single purpose, large auditoria spaces into more focus on multifunctional spaces that have flexible furnishings and maybe flat floor arrangements that give flexibility for different modalities within a single space, and not having to do a major reset of that room from a physical standpoint. I think along with our corporate clients, we're also seeing a real attention on what does academic workplace look like moving forward, and how are we post-COVID learning from our remote working options and work from home desires of our administrators and staff, as well as our faculty. So how does that play into space utilization on campuses and what we're able to do with the physical resources that we have available to us? And then I think also we're going to continue seeing deeper investments in infrastructure, and that's embedded technology within our classrooms that will make the hybrid course offerings even more seamless in terms of having remote learners as well as in person. We talk about partnerships between institutions. So our K-12 systems are partnering with our higher education institutions through the community colleges, through the universities. We're also seeing a lot more collaborations between our different higher ed institutions for partnerships. So when we have students on one remote campus and another cohort on another campus, having that embedded technology truly does help us to make that a more seamless process. And then I think as a real outcome of this, and one of our projects that we were working on here in the Triangle during the COVID process has been on faculty development and providing robust really recording studios, and be that from a video standpoint or podcasting, but having technology and resources available to our faculty as well as students to develop quality course materials in a stable and successful way, I think is going to be a trend that we look at moving forward as more hybrid options come available online.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Great answer. And I want to say kudos to you for taking advantage of Wake Tech and the amazing next to none, we're second to none community college system that President Sith oversees for North Carolina. We do have a question from the audience, but first I want to get to Chuck and talk through innovation and products as we talk about hybrid and actually folks that are in the classroom and not in the classroom. So for you, Chuck, over the course of the last year and a half, the demand for your products and services has seen a rapid increase, mainly due to the heightened focus on eliminating germ spread and disinfection. That said, how have your innovative products helped to resolve some of education's most pressing challenges? And how do you believe the focus for all business sectors has permanently changed as it relates to commercial cleaning efforts?
That's a great question. It certainly has. There's certainly been a seismic shift from pre-pandemic and us being out there and touting what we knew at the time about absenteeism and improving air quality, disinfection, and so forth, and looking at new innovative ways to improve those things. And then when the pandemic hit, there was a seismic shift. So what we started to learn, from administrators in schools across the country and in North Carolina, obviously, was that, what can we do to try to return to school safely return to schools or safely return to businesses. And it's, really collaborating with every district is different. Every higher ed institution is different in terms of how they're going about it. There's different committees, there's different decision makers. And so us being able to be nimble and be a small company like we are, small, but kind of a large company, small in terms of being nimble, and we can move pretty fast. We don't, when you're a startup, it's about 3 or 4 years old, you can move pretty quickly to try to address specific concerns and unique concerns from districts and higher education institutions around the state and around the country. For us, it's just been address exactly what they're trying to do. And again, it's always different. Not everybody really wants to return safely to schools immediately. They want a process, they want a program. We just want to be a part of that process, part of the solution. And we try to shed as much independent light and knowledge on it as possible. And if our products end up, fitting a need, that's great. And if they don't, that's okay too, just as long as we feel like we've made everybody aware of what we know and the options that are out there, because there are a lot of good options, not just ours. There are so many great solutions out there for returning to school or for hybrid. You mentioned studios. We've seen quite a bit of recording studios, both video and audio. And so somebody going into that studio, your mindset, this was brought up to us, your mindset is, okay, this is a safe environment, but let's make sure it's safe. Let's make sure that the air quality is good. Let's make sure that the mic is clean. Let's make sure it's been disinfected so that somebody that's in there doesn't have to think twice about it. And it almost goes down, the devil's always in the details. And probably people get annoyed with us for asking so many questions when we're with a potential customer or collaborating on something, just because we want to know everything that they're trying to do to make it a safer environment for folks who are on campus, and whether they're going to be there to do something remotely or not. So we're able to really move pretty fast in terms of changing, what we need to do to accommodate the needs of anybody that's out there trying to accomplish coming back to school or set up an environment for remote learning, but broadcasting from a school. So to that end, yeah, you're right. The demand for our products and services has really gone up. But I think what we're most proud of is the demand for our knowledge base has gone up, and it's maybe it's more feel like we're maybe consulting a little bit more, which is fine too. We just want to be a resource for people who want to know what's out there and what's available and what can work for them.
Great responses, Chuck. That being there and being a resource, I think, has helped everyone out during this time. And I think the fact that you all are nimble and able to shift is completely what's got us through this time, and looking at all aspects of things from cleanliness to design on Sean's end and how to figure that out. So thanks for all that you do. Thanks for all that everyone does. Shifting gears a little bit to get to this question from the audience. In my day job, I get to be Vice President of Strategic Engagement for the Research Triangle Foundation, which RTP is the greatest place in the world. That's what I get to do on a day-to-day basis. But in speaking of that, we had $4.5 billion of growth and over 6,000 jobs announced in RTP alone last year. So the question becomes, how are schools going to keep up with the incredible growth due to the influx of people coming into this area? And so I think, President Stiff, I'll start with you, because I think as we have these announcements, these companies are coming and partnering with you and the community college system to have programs and training and finding workers. So how do we keep up with education and align that with the tremendous growth that we've had in the Triangle?
And I will have to say, first of all, congratulations to Sean for joining the community college family. I hope your experience is going well. I actually am sitting here on the campus of Wake Tech, and it really is a segue into answering the question, because our board over the last 2 days have been in meetings as we look at our strategic plan for the next 3 to 4 years. You talk about the amount of investment here in the Triangle. Over the last year, we've had announcements over 24,000 jobs coming to the state of North Carolina, not to mention those industries that are expanding because of the growth of our state. And so we as I mentioned earlier, the community college system prior to COVID has played a key role in the economic growth and expansion of our state. So for the community college system, and in particular here in the Triangle, while I'm sitting at Wake Tech, you have several within driving distances. My hometown, Durham Technical Community College, Johnson Community College, Advanced Granville. You have a hub of community colleges in strategic proximity to the growth in the Triangle. And we are critically aligned with business and industry. If you look at the biotechnology industry in particular, just the growth that the state is seeing overall across the state, but clearly here in the Triangle, we're having those conversations, able to provide customized training for those companies. So when they have specific training for potential staff or existing staff, they're partnering, and we're supporting financially from the community college system, as an example, those training opportunities. So we not only have been a part of the job engine of the state, as I mentioned, we're literally now in the planning process because of how attractive North Carolina is to business and industry. While we're the third largest community college system in this country, we think we're the best community college system housed in the best state in the country. And we're seeing that with migration into North Carolina, just by residents, but also business and industry. So the key to that is going to continue to be communicate very closely with business and industry so that our students are properly prepared for these just significant opportunities that we see not only from existing industry in the Triangle and across the state, but as that grows.
Yeah, President Stith, you don't have to be bashful. The ratings bear everything that you just said. 7 out of the top 10 community colleges, rated community colleges in the nation are in North Carolina. So you don't have to be bashful at all.
All right, thank you for that.
So we can stay there, but I think we've got about 5 minutes left. And so I do want to get to this final question and give Ms. Sowers and Chuck, give you both a chance to talk about this. And as it relates to your sector, what would you identify as the most exciting innovation and or new idea over the last year? And how will or could it change the future landscape of your business and your sector as a whole? And I'll start with, I'll go to Chuck and then we'll go to Sean.
Okay, just over the last year, I would say for us, it's been, we go back to community colleges, quite frankly, in terms of recruiting technical expertise for our products. So for us, I'm not sure there's been one single innovation because we were, working on our products pre-pandemic. Did we accelerate some things? Did we improve some things? Sure, but fundamentally, they're pretty much the same as they were before the pandemic started, and they function the same, and they function perfectly. What it is for us, though, now is to be able to go to the community colleges to get trained personnel to be able to go out and service our units, be part of our installation teams. There's a tremendous amount of growth here. We're hiring all the time. We've created so many jobs. And I always found that, my dad, President Stith, my dad, after he retired from JCPenney Company for 37 years, was on the board at Alamance Community College. I'm from Burlington. And he always told me, he said, if you're ever in business, don't forget about the community college to go get talented folks. And so I'm happy to be on this panel because we utilize the community colleges. And to that end, we are developing some new products now and have some new ideas for something that might be more residential in nature, maybe for hotels and so forth, to keep, environments where people go, quite frankly, go frequently, to keep them safer. And there are a lot of great ideas and so many great skills that come out of that. And they're very serious people. So for us, it's utilizing the resources that are just right in our backyard in terms of finding just incredibly talented people, because nothing beats great people. So no secret here. There's been no great new innovation over the last year that's improved, what our current product offerings are. But I believe the people that we're bringing on board, a lot of them from community colleges, are going to have our next generation of products and the next generation of products for the years to come. So for us, we're excited about that.
Sean, final word. Let's close it out. And it's no better than having a woman give us sage advice to close everything out. So Sean, to you, innovation from your industry and how it'll change.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to bend the question a little bit into a couple of different areas, because while I don't think that this is necessarily the most exciting innovation, but I think it's a very important topic as we talk about sustainability, resiliency, and also how we handle the growth that is predicted for our region. And that is about making the best use of the facilities that we have available to our campuses now. As architects, we love to do the great big new flashy projects on your campus, but we also recognize the importance of maintaining and operating your existing capital and making sure that those are working as hard as they can for you across all of the campuses, be that in our K-12 school systems all the way through our colleges and universities. So, we're looking at, efficiencies and utilization within our buildings, and are the spaces functioning in the best way that they can for you? And is that an area of investment that could help to benefit longer term? I think that also plays into energy usage and operations costs of our facilities over time. And what are improvements that we can make in our systems investments to help improve the operations cost as well as giving back to the planet as a result of it. And then I think another thing that we have really seen a growing trend toward is adaptive reuse, right? So we have a lot of capital buildings that are available. We've seen a tremendous growth in adaptive reuse of big box stores. How do we transfer those facilities as they're either becoming too small for our retail components, or the retail components are morphing into a new brand themselves? How do we use those spaces as existing capital that can help to further our educational causes? And beyond that, I think with the growth, making sure that as communities, as we address the growth and address the access to education and pipeline, that we still respect that rich history that we have here in the Triangle with all of our communities, and making sure that in 10 years and 20 years down the road, if you were parachuted into the Triangle area, are you going to recognize where you are? And I think that that's something that we have to stay true to as we continue to address the growing pipeline of development that we have here in the Triangle.
Yeah, there you go. There you have it. There's the final word. Thank you, panelists. This was amazing. This was absolutely innovation overload and new ideas of education and how it's influencing the Triangle's growth. Thank you to Capital Analytics. Thank you to everyone that's tuning in. Max, I'll turn it back over to you.
And if everyone can just hold for 1 second while we take a quick picture, please smile. Perfect. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much, Ray, Chuck, Sean, and Thomas for being with us today and that excellent discussion on the innovations coming out of the Triangle area. We appreciate your time very much. In addition to revisiting this event on our YouTube page today, you can also go there as well to check out the Invest Insights platform that Abby mentioned earlier. In addition to Dennis Edwards, some upcoming episodes will feature Leslie Packer from Ellis & Winters and Steve Hepler from LS3P. It's now my privilege to introduce our final panel for today's event, Developing for the Future. What does the future hold for real estate in the Triangle? Moderating this last panel for us today is Diego Munoz, Principal and Broker at KW Commercial, KW Commercial's thispropertyavailable.com. Diego, if you could turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Yes.
Hi, Diego. Good to see you. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the panelists and take it away.
Thank you so much. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today with this distinguished panel, several that I've had a chance to work with before, and I'm looking forward to learning a whole bunch. So quickly, just to make the introductions, we have Mr. Jim Allen, President, Broker, and Realtor of the Jim Allen Group at Coldwell. Mr. Jim Anthony, CEO of EPG Capital, Frank Baird, CEO of Capital Associates Management, and Matt Hohorst, Vice President of Arco Design Build. And my name is Diego Munoz. I am President of KW Commercial, thispropertyavailable.com. Let me go ahead and jump right in. I wanted to start with a question for Matt. I think it's a question we'd all love to get your guidance on, and that is material costs. Material costs have been on a steady rise due to supply chain issues and increased demand. What adaptations are you seeing in development processes and client expectations that have worked to mitigate the impact of these rising costs?
Yeah, thanks, Diego. Unfortunately, I get this question about 10 times a day. And so thank you for bringing it up just one more time. But yeah, no, this is a challenge that we continue to face on every project. It's gone from being a monthly challenge to a weekly challenge, even an hourly challenge to some extent. We look at material escalations. It becomes very difficult to expect where this is going to go. Now, we were pretty hopeful that this was going to start to trail off at this point. You start to see lumber pricing start to come back down in the more recent past here, but steel prices continue to increase for us. The way we kind of combat that is a couple of different ways. One is as an organization, as an enterprise, ARCO, we're the largest industrial design builder in the entire country. We build about 600 facilities a year in North America, and so for us, we have a large amount of buying power in comparison to some smaller players in the market. We have direct connections with steel fabricators and material suppliers that we have constant conversations with on a daily basis. The challenge is, even at that, we really don't have enough sway to really drive this in a meaningful way. It's not like, well, hey, we can save you 30% of your material costs. A lot of it's largely out of our control. But what we can do to some extent is that, by nature, as you can imagine, our company's called ARCO Design Build. We are design builders in the truest form. We're evangelists of that process. What that allows us to be able to do is to be able to actually go and give an actual developer, an end user, the ability to be able to actually lock in their material pricing much earlier in the project. And so in a typical plan and spec type kind of execution, it's very difficult to sometimes be able to expect what are the escalations going to look like 6 months, a year down the road when we get to a point we actually have a full design. And so from day one, once we actually have an idea of what we, what you want to build, we can be able to, in about a week or two, actually be able to put you in a position to actually lock in your pricing. We've seen that be very successful for us in the way that we do design build. And so that's really been very effective for our clients, and we continue to do that on a daily basis. But I think ultimately, it's transparency and communication as much as we can. We're not here to make money off of what's going on in the market today. But it's hard, even in a 2-week period of time while you're fleshing out details of a contract, a building could go up by 5%. And it's rather difficult. And I imagine even for Jim and others in the capital world, that could be very frustrating to anticipate what you're going to come against.
Matt, my hope is in asking that question and all the people watching, I've reduced the number of times you have to answer that now. As a follow-up, sure. As a follow-up, I do want to ask this question of all of you, Jim and Frank, as experienced investors and developers. Do you feel that there might be a role that local, state, or federal government or policies can help to resolve this issue?
Back to work. Stop the state.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's our biggest problem, is people coming back to work.
And stop this ridiculous idea that we're going to force people, take away their freedom to choose what to do with their body, and we're going to fire them if they don't. We have no idea what that is going to do to our healthcare system, every industry in this country, if they lose 10 to 25% of their employment as a result of this. It will utterly destroy the U.S. economy, and we cannot let this stand.
Yeah, we're
trying
to get ahead of it, and we've got 3 build-to-suits going on right now. I ordered steel last June for a delivery this coming December, and I was fortunate enough to get a spot that was canceled by somebody else. But and then I learned last week that I can't get roof insulation till next April, and so I'm now 2 months behind and closing in the building. And it's just makes predictability go out the window altogether. And I'm hearing now, with hurricanes in the Gulf, polymer plants being shut down, can't get paint now, can't get components to make roof material. It's just spreading through every segment of the market.
Jim, you're muted.
in the residential end of it, one of the things we've done to combat it is we are not putting homes on the market as soon in the process. And we've really stopped doing pre-sales because there's really no way to give someone a fixed price and predict where the material costs are going to go. Fortunately, waiting longer in the process hasn't really impacted sales that much.
Jim, let me stick with you on the next question. Residential real estate prices are obviously at a high. They're in fact surpassing the heights of the mid-2000 housing bubble. In your opinion, are we in another bubble that will experience a similar type correction at some point? And what would you say are the key distinctions between today's rising prices and those of the mid-2000s?
Good question, but obviously we're not in a bubble of any type. It's not a vacuum of any sort. The difference between 2006, 2008, and now, we actually had things called stated income loans, where if a person had reasonable credit and not even reasonable, they simply told the lender how much money they made a year and they could qualify for any type of purchase. But we also, and this is a really key factor, we had 21,000 homes on the market in the triangle during that period. We currently have only about 1,800 homes on the market in the broad market, the entire triangle, not just Wake County. There is such a lack of inventory. I feel like my NC State professors would be proud of me because lack of supply, increased demand equals higher prices. We are getting ready to see a shift in our entire market to a new pricing paradigm that won't return back because the people moving in here, the jobs being created are paying so much more than what the current standard of living here is. And the markets they're leaving, like California, for example, home prices are 4 and 5 times what they are here in the triangle. So we are still very affordable, but don't expect this current pricing to slow down anytime soon. It's going to take us nearly a decade right now if we didn't increase anything, and we don't even have the Apple impact occurring yet. But it will take us a decade to catch up from a supply chain in order to be able to have enough lots available to build on to maybe combat some of this. And it's a positive. I mean, from that standpoint and from a pricing strategy, you'll see that. But what it's done is it's created true urban sprawl for the first time in the triangle. Towns like Zebulon and Lewisburg and Mebane are really experiencing growth now because those are the more affordable sectors of our economy. So pricing is just beginning to rise. I think it's going to take a decade for that to flatten out. But we really, the biggest thing that is impacting it and the cure for us here in the triangle, again, going back to what Jim said, we need more jobs in different sectors. In the construction part of the market, we need those people back to work. But if you're just looking at this from a pricing standpoint, the job creation is going to take care of everything. And I think we will see eventually a flattening, but it's going to take, because it takes 3 to 4 years to develop a new home residential neighborhood currently in the triangle. So the bureaucracy from the municipalities has got to stop. That's one of the things that's causing the urban sprawl is the smaller communities don't take as long to get projects approved. The other one, it's not the construction of the project that's the timeline. It's the approval process, which is getting longer and longer and longer. So I don't see any type of bubble. I see the exact opposite for the next 10 years.
Jim, I appreciate that answer. You kind of anticipated my next question. So I'll just pass on it and move on to Jim Anthony for the next question. Let's talk commercial development and investment for a moment. How are these matters going to change in the post-pandemic world when it comes to an investor's or developer's appetite for risk and their ability to leverage funds given the current and future environment of low interest rates?
Well, first of all, I'm glad we're in a free speech zone, and so I'm going to say some stuff that will be controversial. That question was loaded with about 10 different parts, and so I'll try to hit the highlights as quickly as I can. Listen, this market was on fire before the pandemic. We dumped gasoline nationally, poured it mostly in cities that are now locked down, from Washington, D.C. up the Acela corridor, and then across to Chicago, Minneapolis, and down the West Coast. And now everybody in those markets is actively considering relocating their families or their businesses. Now, I'm exaggerating when I say everybody, but the truth is, it is large numbers of people. And Jim Allen sees this with his real estate teams, where these people are coming from. I was surprised to learn, I thought maybe because of the sheer size of California, it would be the largest contributor, but it's not. So Washington, D.C. market is the largest contributor of these immigrants that are coming here. And they're not just coming to live or move their business, they're moving their capital here. They want to get out of Washington, out of New York, out of these overpriced gateway cities that are locked down, and move it here into a free state, free city. Well, partially free. And they want to get their capital reinvested in a market that they see has a future, whereas these other lockdown cities are really in trouble. They're in political trouble, they're in tax trouble, they're in financial trouble. And so we have just crazy amounts of capital trying to get into every product type in this market. Cap rates are at all-time lows. And every time I turn around and say, it's never going to go lower than that, it does. And the price will never go above that, but then it does. And so we have I would say we do have a bubble, because at some point the party stops. Now, Jim gave us his best guess of 10 years, and I think it might be that long. But here's what is going to affect it and shorten it. If there are significant issues in these gateway city markets, which dwarf us in size, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars of real estate that gets soft in value, the ripple effects throughout the capital markets are monstrous. And we get caught up in that. So the 2008 debacle, we were in great shape in 2008 in the Raleigh-Durham area. But what happened was there was a national financial collapse, and we got sucked into it. And virtually every land developer in this market went broke as a result of that. So I'm not willing to say that we're invulnerable. I think we've got incredibly positive market dynamics because of the migration trends and the capital trends. We've got healthy banks. We've got strong availability of loan capital, but that can change. There are a lot of black swans that have largely been placed in our pond by political forces, and we got to be watching them closely.
Thank you, Jim. And I will say this is a free speech zone, and the more guidance that we can get from all of your experience, I think everyone will benefit. Frank, I want to jump in a question for you, and I think, Matt, you may have something to contribute on this also. But for Frank, with your extensive experience in downtown and Class A office product, how are you seeing users adapt their gradual return to office space to accommodate their staff and maintain high levels of productivity? And then more in a general scope, how is our market in general overcoming office tenancy issues unlike those in other markets?
Well, I think downtown had a double whammy during the riots that we had last June and COVID. And it is, I feel like our community set back downtown 10 years in the last year. It's very difficult for any of the retailers or any of the restaurants to really get back into full swing. I really thought we would have kind of a surge of tenants putting people back in the office after Labor Day. That all came to a screeching halt around the 1st of August with the Delta variant. I'm seeing more and more of them delaying till January. People are starting to reconfigure space. I think it's going to have an impact on parking. It's going to have an impact on traffic. A lot of people are going to have to reinvent maybe how they do things. You know, one example is I don't think we'll be selling monthly parking spaces to people. You may end up selling 3 people a parking space and they get to use it on different days. And so in January of 2020, we were out of equilibrium in parking in downtown. There were more people needing parking spaces than we had parking spaces. That is not a problem anymore. And I think we're going to see a work week that kind of returns to 3 to 4 days a week of employees actually being in the office, and probably a broader amount of square footage. I don't think you'll see the call center densities that we saw prior to the pandemic. I think contrary to popular belief, the suburbs are alive and well and growing in office space. And you know, when you're paying a big premium to be in an apartment downtown because you want to walk to work and have amenities all around you, when those amenities aren't open or you don't feel safe to go out because there are people protesting in the street, you tend to ding value a little bit. And it's going to take a little bit for that to come back around, but it will. And our pricing downtown, both and this really holds true for suburb and urban. Our pricing in multifamily and in office rents are so much dramatically lower than, say, Austin or Nashville, certainly DC, Boston, you know, major gateway cities, that we still create a really good value for companies relocating or for, you know, kids renting apartments downtown and more urban style apartments.
Thank you, Frank. Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I'll give you a kind of opinion on two different fronts. One is what we have seen as the pandemic hit is a lot of developers who are traditionally really invested in the office and retail side of the world really look at opportunities to start to diversify. You know, in the triangle here, we're one of those prominent players in both the life science and the industrial space. Not to say we don't do office in other areas, but we really kind of thrive in that area. And so, you know, a lot of question on conversions. Can we convert retail to life sciences? Can we convert office to life sciences? You know, and there's a lot of requirements that really have to be met to do that. We have one conversion we're doing in the North Hills area right now. We're pretty excited about. This should be very good. But you know, one of the other areas, though, I'd say with office, it's a smaller sector that not everybody focuses on, but I think also is a unique challenge. You know, with the life science growth in the market, you're seeing quite a bit of folks pick up more industrial flex type buildings, especially out in Morrisville near the airport. Those are really getting converted over to lab space. You know, all the individuals that were in those spaces, you know, also looked at that as kind of a budget office space type kind of requirement that now is very difficult for them to meet. I mean, the rising costs in and around Raleigh and Durham in Morrisville in between is making it very difficult for them to sustain there. So where do they go? And part of the challenge is that I think it's going to force them out into more tertiary markets in the suburbs. And so I think that you also see kind of a growth in that area over the next couple of years as well, and more of that flex industrial kind of budget office space for folks as well.
Awesome. Thank you both. We do have a couple of audience questions coming in. First one was, in your opinions, how will future developments leverage opportunity zone funds?
I'll wander into that one quickly and say that they've been a huge deal in other parts of the country and other parts of the state, not so big a deal here in Raleigh-Durham. We're limited in opportunity zone land. There is one on downtown that's actively being marketed right now that looks like a great project. But the clock is running out on opportunity zone timing. And that legislation was limited to a very specific time frame. And I can't remember exactly when it expires, but I think you've got to get your money into the deals and get the deal on the books by the end of this year, or you're not going to get the full benefits of the Opportunity Zone tax plan.
Jim, I believe that is actually.
I think they are. I think they work a lot better in a lot more urbanized cities than what we have. Our zones are pretty liberal around downtown and south and east of downtown. I think my client Steve Malik's done a good job trying to place the soccer stadium with John Kane down there. Whether or not that happens or not, I hope it does. But you know, Steve's put a big bet down in buying a whole lot of land down there, and he's closed on it. So he's fully invested. But it is, I don't know. I've always been one to pay the tax when I sell the building and kind of move on and not have rolling over 1031s forever.
And residentially, we've avoided, it just takes way too long to get a residential community approved in order to really take advantage of it. And I agree, we're not urbanized enough to really take full advantage.
Yeah, you know, across the country, you know, we see this as a real, everybody kind of ran to the OZ kind of a topic for quite a while. And I tell you, I've never, even across even more urban areas, and worked in up in the Northeast, I haven't really seen anybody really take full advantage of it. It's kind of few and far between. I don't know that it necessarily took hold the way that it necessarily needed to, but I know we're working on a project down in Selma, Johnson County. It's a new industrial park called Eastfield. That's in the OZ. You know, we just broke ground on that. You know, us and the developer down there are pretty confident, and you know, that may be an attractor for some that are coming into the area. But it's too early to kind of say how that'll play out. But we're hoping that you see a benefit off of that.
We have another question that was asked. What are your thoughts about the S&T market?
Single tenant net retail, is that?
I will admit, I'm not sure if it means science and technology, or I'll let you all define what S&T means in terms of what you feel is an important way to answer that question.
Question here. Well, maybe you got it and we didn't. But if it's single tenant net leases, I can address that quickly. Just like anything else, they're getting, we're talking about quick serve restaurants, we're talking about pharmacies, we're talking about auto parts stores. You know, typically the single tenant net lease is a retail tenant in a building that was built for them, and the developers are building them on one cap rate and reselling them at a lower cap rate to make a living. That market got very hard hit March of last year when capital froze. And it was interesting, the people who had to sell during that roughly 6-month period leading up towards the end of the year were selling at buyer attractive prices, not seller. But that has turned around completely. A lot of those folks who bought those properties, whether it was a Walgreens or a CVS or an Advance Auto or a dollar store, they can now flip those for significant profits. Those cap rates have come back down, depending on the lease term and the quality of the credit. They're ranging from, you know, the best credits are in the 5s, and they're, you know, up as high as for the less desirable credits and the shorter leases, they'll get up to 7. But that's a very hot market right now, and it's become extremely liquid in a environment where the internet is the perfect platform to sell that stuff. You're basically buying bonds when you buy single tenant net lease property.
Yeah, we have a shopping center that we're developing in Loudoun County, Virginia right now, and we've got a Sheetz, a Burger King, a Texas Roadhouse, kind of your whole flavor of non-Amazon tenants. And we're trying to get the rest of it leased up right now, but I think we're going to end up really getting some fairly dramatic cap rates. Got a flyer today on a Sheetz that just sold not too far from us for a 4 cap rate. You know, and the things that I see that has surprised me the most in the sale market is the cap rates in multifamily in Raleigh in, say, the last 60 to 90 days. I think we have broken through the 4 cap rate threshold and are in the 3s now. And that's really, I'm not sure how sustainable that is. I think with some of these debt packages that are happening in government, if we end up passing $5 trillion worth of debt, we are going to see interest rates spike like we haven't seen before, because somebody's not going to be buying our debt anymore. And when those go up, these cap rates really go up, and people that buy things at a 4 and 5 or build an apartment on a 5 or 6, and they find out they can't get debt at 5 2 years from now when they come out the backside of a construction loan. That's where our bubble potentially, I think, is.
That's right. I agree, Frank.
Gentlemen, we only have about 3 minutes left, and so I'll pose the last audience question generally, and allow you each a couple moments to answer. And that is, for any up and coming developers, those that are just getting in and have a pocket full of money and they want to get into development, what are some of the guiding tips that you would offer them given the current market conditions?
I'd say go to a rural community, not Raleigh. I would get one in the path of growth along the major growth corridors. There are lots of people that are buying houses in towns like Wilson and Rocky Mount that are going to make good money renting those houses and have the ability to flip them. That would be true for lots of different classes of real estate. I think that's true for land. I think if you want to build housing, as Jim Allen told us earlier, the demand in these suburban markets is extreme. The ability to get a project built is so much easier. And the cap rates are just not as high for whether you're buying retail properties or industrial properties or office properties. You get a better return. And I think that's just a safer way to go.
I think as investors, everyone should be broadening their horizon. There are markets I swore I would never develop residential uses in because they were just too far, like Nash County, for example, that now I'm on my 3rd neighborhood there and think, man, that's the future. Lewisburg, very hot market. Mebane, Zebulon, Smithfield, Selma, all of the extended markets that aren't constricted by sewer and water. The sewer and water constrictions, most of these product areas are trying to control it all for commercial growth. They really don't want the residential element. So from the commercial guy's standpoint, still great, but those municipalities need to find a balance because people want to live, work, and play. And they've gotten away from the live side and only wanting the workforce there because obviously it drives higher taxes, all those other things. They get higher returns, but people want to live close to where they work. Now, the great news and the reason the urban sprawl is happening so much, so many people are working at home now. It's not important where they live as much. And pure economics, affordability. When the area you want to live in first isn't affordable, you'll move further and further and further out.
That's right.
Matt and Frank, we have about a minute left if you guys want to split the time.
No, without a doubt. No, I absolutely agree with this. You know, a lot of times I tell people like everyone, developers come to town, they want to like run towards the shiny object. Well, the shiny object is really expensive now, and so it's I think again before the tertiary markets I think are really going to be where the best value is going to be. I think that's where the growth is going to be. You know, if you think about it, you go across any major metro in the United States. A 40-minute drive out of town is great drive, a great commute in the big scheme of things. In Raleigh, you know, people, they think about driving to Sanford, they lose their mind. It's so far away. But in reality, I do think that you're going to see clusters crop up that way. I think that also you're seeing in the life sciences market, manufacturers, a lot of what you're hearing about are manufacturers coming to the area. The labor market doesn't really support that in RTP. It supports that in areas even more south or east of the Raleigh market. And so I think the areas, Holly Springs, you're starting to see a trend in that regard too. But I think Holly Springs, Sanford, I think Clayton, I think Wake Forest, even could be an area, Rocky Mount. I think there's opportunities around these clusters that will be relatively positive for them that I think will, start to grow out the nucleus of Raleigh.
Final word, Frank?
Yeah, we started working on a project in Garner back in the spring, 50 acres of residential. We kind of gave them a number that we thought would be the price to sell for. We ended up having 21 offers from people from Chicago to Miami for residential land, and we're coming in at double what we thought it was worth. And I would have never guessed that in my 20, 30 years of working in Raleigh, but it's Holly Springs, Fuquay Varina, you go around the clock, and as 540 opens up, southeast Wake County is going to be kind of where the next land gold rush is going to be.
Amen.
On behalf of Jim Allen, Jim Anthony, Frank Baird, and Matt Hohorst, I'm Diego Munoz. I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to Capital Analytics for this opportunity. It's been a great conversation. I look forward to meeting up with any one of you for coffee or another type of beverage and talking more.
Great.
And if everyone can just hold for 1 second, we're going to take a quick picture. Smile.
Yes,
perfect. Yes.
Held that long enough. Yeah.
Put that up on my wall. Thanks so much, Max.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And Robin will be right with us.
Okay, hope everybody can see me. I just wanted to first say thank you to all the panelists and moderators today. We really appreciate all of your remarks and all of you who joined us virtually for the event today as well. So, but for all of you that I have not had the pleasure to meet, my name is Robin Mangrum, and I am the Executive Director for the Invest Raleigh-Durham inaugural issue. And as a proud Apex Cary native myself, I have personally experienced the transformation and growth in our region. It's been amazing to me and work with you and your colleagues to put together this inaugural edition of our annual business report. This report, I believe, really turned out amazing. I think it's our best report of all of them, but I'm a little biased. But in any case, I'm thrilled about the amount of contributors we had, and I want to thank each and every one of you who provided your insight and knowledge to this report. We do live in the best region. I really believe that, and I think it shines in this report. But despite the challenges of the last 2 years, 2021 has been a real success for us here in the Triangle. I'm honored to have met over 200 senior executives this year who have been generous with their time in building this report. I'm also excited to report that we have over 500 registered attendees for today's event, which speaks volumes given this was our first event in the area. And thank you all for being here. So lastly, I would like to thank our incredible partners and sponsors for making this possible. So of course, our gold sponsors today, APG Capital, Arco Design Build, and the Jim Allen Group at Coldwell Banker. Thanks, you guys. Our bronze sponsor, Carolina Meadows out in Chapel Hill. And our honored sponsors, Ballantine, Capital Associates Management, Edward Jones, Fifth Third Bank, Invisible, K&L Gates, KW Commercial, North Raleigh, LS3P Architects, and Research Triangle Park. Thank you all for sponsoring and giving me the support. I really appreciate all of it. As a last reminder, our team will be sharing a link after this conference so that everyone can access the digital edition of our publication. So keep an eye out for that. You can also rewatch or share today's event from our Capital Analytics YouTube page. And while we have this fabulous digital and printed report, be sure to visit our website, www.capitalanalyticsassociates.com. Register for our weekly newsletter, which highlights remarkable business leaders here in the area. We also have relevant articles that goes out every week with valuable insights into the Triangle market. So you can also follow us on social media. Be sure to also follow me, because I'm always posting stuff on my LinkedIn about what's happening here in the Triangle. So thank you again for joining us today, to our presenters, moderators, and panelists for your insightful words, and our sponsors for your supporting efforts. We look forward to meeting everyone for the next edition of Invest Raleigh-Durham. Keep an eye out. We'll be kicking it off Q2 2022. Thank you again. Have a great rest of your week and weekend.